You guys ever heard of a band called the Beatles? In the distant ancient year of 1960, four Englishmen, okay, it's kind of more like sex, but who's counting, got together and made a band that got a little famous. And that's the end of the story. Don't ask me any more questions. Okay, enough jokes and jests. We're talking about the Beatles. And when you get Beatles tier famous, people start talking about you. People start paying homage to you. People start writing yaoi fanfiction of you. But we're not talking about that. Not today, anyway. Picture this. The year is 2007. I'm 12 or 13 years old and I have horrible taste. Okay, I wouldn't go that far. Okay, maybe I would. Whatever, who cares? I don't care. Do you care? The year 2007 was marked by several notable events, many of which I cannot remember to an extent that I worry may signal some sort of terrifying diagnosis one day. But in the meantime, I can tell you a few things that haven't been scrubbed yet. I watched Britney Spears shave her head from the Nickelodeon Hotel. I saw the utterly fecal movie Wild Hogs because the kid I liked in my class invited me to do so. I became familiar with a fellow named Barack Obama. And in October, my family went to a movie theater and saw the Beatles-themed jukebox musical Across the Universe. Evidently, we were some of the only people who made that decision. But I digress. There is a somewhat abundant crop of Beatles movies. These fall into several categories, including movies made actually with and about the Beatles, movies paying homage to the Beatles without their involvement, good documentaries, animated films, bad documentaries, and fanfiction. The thing about this band is, like I said, their timeless popularity and ever-ascending status as rock legends make them good fodder for making stuff, and making money off making stuff, be it coffee mugs or streaming series. And the thing about a lot of different people operating off the same source material is that the quality will be hit or miss. One of the biggest swings and misses came in 1978, when Michael Schultz attempted a tribute film called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, starring Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees. Because, sure. It was very poorly received, its reputation hasn't really been rehabilitated, but it did give us the Earth, Wind, and Fire version of Got to Get You Into My Life, so I say let the cool waters of absolution rain down on you. I frankly don't have much to say about this film as I've never seen it start to finish. But I do think it's kind of funny that Robin Gibb apparently once said of its importance, "Kids today don't know the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper." Here, Robin is referring to an album that had come out roughly 11 years prior. To understand this further, this would be effectively the same as me saying something like, "Kids today don't know AM by the Arctic Monkeys." Ugh, that just made me imagine Apple releasing, like, sped up and slowed down versions of Beatles songs. Ugh, no. So, here comes Julie Taymor, well-respected creative visionary who somehow made one of Disney's best films even better, Don't At Me, taking her turn at Beatles bat with a jukebox musical about these guys. Or their music, at least. Was it good? Critics and box office returns say no, but I say... Well, okay, give me a chance. All right, listen to me. I'm not sure if I'd say Across the Universe is an unfairly maligned cinematic classic. I'm not sure if I'd even say it was great. But I can say that I like it, and I find it to be compelling and artistically interesting. I can also see how other people might watch this and think, okay, well, I don't believe you for a second, you weirdo. But you need to do the hearing part of hearing me out here, okay? You follow me? I'm gesturing with my hands right now. You can't see it. Across the Universe is about 2 hours-ish long. It's about a Liverpudlian ship worker named Jude Feeney who goes to America to meet his deadbeat dad, and along the way, the entire 1960s happens to him and some of the people he meets. Nearly every character in this film is named after a Beatles song, even the minor ones. Jude, Max, Lucy, Sadie, Jojo, Prudence, etc. This is something the Sgt. Pepper movie also attempted, but Julie Taymor made the inspired creative decision to pick names that didn't usually sound completely ridiculous coming out of the actors' mouths. A common criticism of this film is that its plot is thin, clumsy, and cliché, and this I cannot ever hope to argue with. It ticks all the boxes of 60s period pieces: Vietnam, drugs, hippies, bohemian lifestyle in a coastal city, protest, the civil rights movement, rock music, it's all there. And a big issue with trying to cram all of these things into one 2-hour film, beyond the fact that it is very cliché, is that you simply cannot dedicate meaningful cinematic real estate to doing justice to any of these very heavy and complex topics. This is a big miss on Taymor's part, I think, because in an effort to look conscientious, the narrative ends up instead coming off borderline insensitive. This is one of the first things I think you need to wrap your head around when dealing with Across the Universe. It's not a narrative film, though it may appear to be. I feel I best enjoy this movie when I detach from the loose thread that it calls a plot, and instead see that plot as a foundational structure on which all of the real substance, namely the great music, engaging visuals, and conceptual experimentation, is built. Across the Universe is not a political film, I think. It alludes to politics, yes, often in a way that I don't find completely ideologically coherent, but it doesn't seem to say much of anything with any sort of directness. It believes the Vietnam War was bad, but doesn't really dig into why it's bad. Resistance to institutional oppression is good, but it doesn't seem to have any solid conception of what good and bad resistance really are. I wouldn't go into this film expecting any sort of moral. That's not what it's about. This is, as someone on TV Tropes described, effectively a series of music videos loosely connected by a thin story. And those music videos are, by and large, very, very fun to watch. Across the Universe is, weird? It's peculiar. I wouldn't call it Dadaist or anything, but I feel like it's strange and artsy to a degree that's just enough to alienate your average Joe Schmo. There's a bit of a story to how it got this way, of course. You see, Julie Taymor had built a unique reputation for herself by the time this film hit her radar. Her most recent film-based directorial work prior to this was Frida, a 2002 biopic of Frida Kahlo that had been respectably successful with both audiences and critics. Her biggest distinction, however, is almost certainly her visual style, and it's a distinction that led her to direct and design a number of high-profile plays, including takes on some of the most famous theatrical works ever made. Julie's visual flair can be noticed a mile away. She loves things like masks, dense shapes, striking colors, and highly stylized faces, an aesthetic she cultivated while working with her performance troupe in Indonesia. Her artistic vision is clear and unique, and when you couple that with strong directing, well, why not recruit her? But here's the thing about a successful, unique artist who knows she is those two things. She's not gonna take requests to stifle her vision lying down. Joe Roth, the chairman of Across the Universe production company Revolution Studios, was not pleased with the film that Taymor had put together. He thought it was too long, too strange, and too alienating. A recut was cobbled together against Taymor's wishes, shortened and more palatable to general audiences. And she fought tooth and nail to get her original cut sent out to theaters. Amy Pascal apparently got involved to try and push Taymor to release the hack job cut, let's call it. Both cuts were shown to test audiences, and while both got mixed reactions, Taymor's edged out Roth's version in positive feedback. By this point, the arguing as well as an extensive editing process had pushed the film's release back by about a full year. Now, Julie Taymor's stubbornness has not always been a good thing.
The daring and supersized musical Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark.
But in this case, I have to back her. As I said, the plot of Across the Universe is wafer thin. Its weirdness and eccentricity are its biggest charming elements, and probably the biggest reason I watch it still again and again. I honestly forget most of the story most of the time. I practically tune it out because it's a non-factor to me. I'm here for the visuals, the weirdness, and the music. And while we're here, that soundtrack really is great. I'm a bit of a cover snob. A cover has to really knock my socks off to get me to like it. You cannot half-ass this. If you want to know how serious I am, I think the top-loader version of Dancing in the Moonlight is just okay. And okay, I wouldn't say a lot of the songs in Across the Universe are better than the original, but they're certainly fun, interesting takes. The engineers behind this album did a very smart thing, which is take any element of a song whose vocals in the movie don't translate super well to a listening format, and just have Dana Fuchs, the actress who plays Sadie, do the vocals. And oh boy, does she do 'em! I said a lot of them aren't better than the original, but a few of them are.
How do you know what's good for me? That's my opinion!
And Dana's version of Why Don't We Do It in the Road is indeed one of them. As an ardent Paul McCartney apologist, I am forced to admit that the original is pretty middling and doesn't do much for me.
That's mine!
But the Across the Universe take is just so zesty and rock and roll, and I love it. This film also has one of my favorite versions of Let It Be, performed by Timothy T. Mitchum and Carol Woods. I really recommend listening to this version of the song at least once if you're a Beatles fan. Another standout is Evan Rachel Wood, as love interest Lucy, performing If I Fell as she's falling in love with Jude. I'm a way bigger fan of the original version of this song than Why Don't We Do It on the Road, but I still think I prefer the movie's version sometimes. Evan Rachel Wood just sings it with such a palpable tension. You can literally feel the conflict of her burgeoning romance against the fresh loss of her last boyfriend in her voice. She's so vulnerable and charmed and nervous all at once, and you can hear it. Oh, it's so good. This isn't shaping up to be one of my more articulate videos. Let's look at another one of the winning components, the visuals. As I said, Across the Universe effectively amounts to a series of imaginative music videos that combine the plot and the song lyrics to just have some kooky fun. And this is also where, I imagine, Joe Roth thought the movie got too weird. Lots of out-of-the-box stuff happens during these sequences, especially around the halfway mark, right before Max is sent off to Vietnam, Jude's mental state unravels, and everyone starts doing substances. The biggest turning point is probably when Bono, playing Ken Casey counterpart, Dr. Robert, with his darndest try in an American accent, God bless him, takes the main ensemble on a trippy cross-country journey as he sings I Am the Walrus, and they take... By the way, right after this scene, having traveled from New York to wherever this is, Dr. Robert finds out that not Timothy Leary doesn't want to see him and is like, dangerang, we gotta go back to California. And Max is like, wait, we're from East Coast, Beast Coast though. And Dr. Bono's like, that's tough. Remember when I wrote Joshua Tree? Goodbye. Not long after this is one of the more interesting scenes in the movie, and the one that I remember made me most scratch my head as a kid. The Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite sequence features Susie Eddie Izzard as the circus ringmaster, and oh boy, she is just hamming it up. If you're like me and watched Eddie Izzard stand-up clips on YouTube in 2007, none of this will probably surprise you. But the visuals in this scene are, well, okay, they're at a circus on a cult's compound, and they're on... Now granted, we get some interesting scenes even when the characters are completely sober. One example to me is the I Want You, She's So Heavy number, which utilizes prosthetics, some of the movie's really incredible choreography, and Harry Lennox from The Matrix. Speaking of, this film is abundant in cameos and stunt casting. On top of Harry, Bono, and Eddie, we also have the likes of Salma Hayek playing a nurse when Max is injured in Vietnam, and Joe Cocker playing 3 different people who only exist to ostentatiously narrate JoJo's arrival in New York in the form of singing Come Together. This is a little ironic as the movie harkens back to his version of With a Little Help from My Friends earlier on. Despite the largely uninteresting storyline and overall pretty flimsy character arcs, I would also say there are a lot of fun performances and really funny lines in this movie. Max is my favorite character.
I'm a cross-dressing homosexual pacifist with a spot on my lawn.
Now, let's touch on some issues. The character arcs are indeed pretty dull and uninteresting. I never feel particularly strongly about anyone's problems or struggles, except for Jojo losing his brother to police brutality in his hometown of Detroit, which arguably makes for one of the most moving scenes in the entire film. That's not to say the film is emotionally dry. The visuals and vocal performances can definitely move me quite a bit, and I think that's a merit in its own right. But it does feel like we could have had a better balance of strong music video making and a compelling story. I honestly don't even want to think about how boring the Joe Roth cut of this movie must have been. Like I said, this movie also lacks any coherent ideology besides bad things are bad, which, while not necessarily wrong, is a little unchallenging. I already explained the way I don't really have beef with this, considering it's basically a visual/musical piece, but I do think it's a sore spot nonetheless. It may be a series of music videos, but there are plenty of music videos that have bold, enticing thesis statements and explorations of those thesis statements. But it's okay, I guess. Sometimes it's good enough for something to just look pretty. Music videos don't necessarily have to be politically evocative. We don't need no education. I'm so smart. But the show must go on. Outside the wall of good and bad, you find a lot of empty spaces where stuff is neither especially amazing nor heinously horrible. The acting isn't going to give you the happiest day of your life, but it's not so terrible that you're going to look at these actors' eyes and think there's nobody. Okay, I can't do this bit forever, you get it. It's Pink Floyd. Ha, The Wall. Yeah, we get it. Okay. I usually hate movies that aren't good enough to be considered good, but are also too cowardly to even try to provoke disdain in me. Like, I hated The Whale not because I found it offensive or disgusting, but because its execution failed to move the emotional needle for me in either direction. To me, this is a failure as an art piece, regardless of whether or not I actually liked the story or the characters. I typically subscribe to the belief that evoking negative emotions and thoughts is usually better than evoking none at all when it comes to art. And it's easy for Across the Universe to fall into this camp, I think. It doesn't have much to say, just a lot to show. But I think the competence of what it shows makes up for what it's not saying, if that makes any sense. It entices me. It makes me want to revisit the film over and over. It makes me feel something. Ultimately, I guess my defense of this film boils down to I can respect if you don't like it. I might even think there's some sort of objective accuracy to not liking it. But I think it's holding its head above water and treading well enough. And, well, I like it. I have fun when I watch it. When did your standards get so high? When did the fire leave our marriage, Tobias? Was it when that new repair guy moved in? Yeah, I've seen how you look at each other. Maybe this is a lukewarm tone for a video meant to uplift this film, but I think there's something exciting about liking a film you might not even think is objectively good or anything close to popular. It certainly gives me an avenue to make all my friends watch this at some point and gauge their own feelings. And, okay, you made it to the end of the video. I cried when I saw this for the first time. I cried a lot. There. Late game twist. So, dear audience, do you like Across the Universe? Do you hate it? Have you seen it at all? Feel free to conversate in the comments. I probably won't read them, though. I'm very afraid of all of you.